Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the West Lindsey series. This is one of the 9 districts of Lincolnshire and one of the county's most rural. It has 128 civil parishes. Let's see which one this episode's all about. Welcome back to West Lindsey, everybody. Now, if you thought last week's episode, Linwood, was a small place, you've seen nothing yet. This one is a lot smaller. Having said that, it does have a couple of landmarks, and one of the things it has is this railway line. Now, you might be familiar with this railway line because we've seen this before in other episodes in this part of West Lindsey, most notably Snelland. This is where it crosses the parish of Buslingthorpe. The West Lindsey series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop, located at 20 Ropery Road or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. And this video is also sponsored by Jamie's Fitness Studio, based on Low Road, Greyingham, near Curtin in Lindsey. Jamie is one busy lady. Check her out by calling 07906 749 574 or emailing hello@jamies.co.uk. Online membership is available. There's a link to her Facebook page in the description. Jamie's Fitness Studio. Get fit, get happy, get healthy. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. You thought Linwood was small, you ain't seen nothing yet. This is Buslingthorpe, a tiny village situated half a mile east of the A46 at Faldingworth and 3 miles southwest of Market Rasen. It should not be confused with Buslingthorpe in Leeds, which is considerably bigger. Covering approximately 3 square miles, the village itself comprises a moat, a farm, a disused church, and approximately 20 houses. A familiar railway line runs through the parish too, which once had a station in the 1800s. Now there's no station and there's no buses out here either, so it's a bit of a public transport black hole. That said, it's still well worth a visit for quite a few reasons. It's here you'll find the remains of a medieval planned village, one of the best examples in the country no less. In the 13th century, Buslingthorpe would have been a thriving settlement, not too dissimilar to the one we met at Snarford. It was centred on a massive moated manor house. Only the church now remains from those days. This place has links to the Odling family, a member of whom played a key role in World War II, and to a man former Prime Minister Boris Johnson once described as one of the greatest conservative thinkers this country has ever had. Yes, in short, it might be a tiny spot on the West Lindsey landscape, but Buslingthorpe has quite a few little gems to discuss. So let's go and do just that. We begin at a familiar railway line. Do you remember the Snelland episode where we counted the wagons on a goods train? Well, this is that same railway line. It's the Lincoln, Cleethorpes and Hull branch of the Great Central Railway, and it'll be making more than a few appearances over the next few episodes. Buslingthorpe used to have a station on this very line, and it was right here. No trains stop here nowadays, but the line still sees 41 trains per day rattle across Buslingthorpe level crossing. Let's do exactly that in the car now and head for the main village. Buslingthorpe Crossing is quite a way away from the centre of downtown, as it were. To get to the village proper, you have to traverse this narrow road, which doesn't offer a lot in the way of passing places. You think you're driving into the middle of nowhere. Beyond the hedgerows on either side, it's all fields and open countryside. But very soon, the village does appear, I promise. So here we are then in Buslingthorpe village. It's very, very small. This is going to take me all of about 10 minutes, I think. It's really tiny. There are a few things here, like I said at the beginning. And one of the things that's here, look at this massive patch of earthworks alongside the main road through the village. Look how well pronounced these are. I wonder what all those were in times past. Who knows? Who knows? Well, guess what? I'm going to find out if I can. Let's have a walk around this place. What you're looking at here is the site of Buslingthorpe's medieval village, which was centred on its manor house. It stood on a raised island and was surrounded by a moat. Even today, most of that moat is filled with water. The medieval village remains are a scheduled monument and are one of the finest examples of a 13th century planned village in the entire country. The modern village is much smaller and it's based around that farm you can see there. That would be Manor Farm, and right next to this is Buslingthorpe Manor. No, it's not the original manor house because that's long gone. It was demolished sometime before 1912. The modern manor, though, is still a very historic building in its own right. Dating from the 18th century, it's used now as a B&B. What a spot to pitch up for a night or two, eh? All that remains of the medieval village now is the church, which is situated behind the small cluster of houses that Buslingthorpe now has. That's our next landmark, folks. So outside the church there's an information board which shows you this map of Buslingthorpe in the 14th century and how different it looks now compared to how it would have been back then. On here you can see the church, it's there, and you can see the moat as well with little bridges over it. So obviously this would have been the sort of de facto centre of the village, but look how big Buslingthorpe would have been back then. This would have been a more of a substantial video, wouldn't it, with all this to walk around. I'm sure some of these places would have been good to capture on camera, but of course they no longer exist. They're not there anymore. The church is still here though, so that is what we're going to talk about next. A 13th century church originally, St Michael's nave and chancel were rebuilt by E.J. Wilson in 1835, and the tower had its top part rebuilt sometime later. It was declared redundant in 1984 and it's now in the care of the church's Conservation Trust. It's still open to visitors, and as such, we weren't to be disappointed. The first thing I noticed in here was the wall tablets to members of the Odling family. For centuries, they've been a healthy and wealthy local family. One in particular, Major General William Odling, was instrumental in saving the island of Madagascar from capture in May 1942. Now, speaking of families, long before the Odlings were the de Buslingthorpes, who held the manor until the mid-15th century. Here we have an effigy of Sir John de Buslingthorpe. Dating from around 1340, he lays on top of a tomb carved with the family shields. His feet rest on a lion and his head on a cushion, supported by angels. Perhaps the most famous man to have been born here was Sir Roger Vernon Scruton, an English philosopher and writer who specialised in aesthetics and political philosophy. Born here in 1944, he spent most of his life in High Wycombe in Buckinghamshire. From 1982 to 2001, he was the editor of the Salisbury Review, a conservative political journal. Scruton wrote books, novels, and 2 operas. His most notable publications include The Meaning of Conservatism in 1980, The Aesthetics of Music in 1997, and How to Be a Conservative in 2014. He was also a regular contributor to The Times, The Spectator, and The New Statesman too. In the 1980s, he helped establish an underground academic network in Eastern Europe, for which he was awarded the Czech Republic's Medal of Merit. He died in 2020 after a short battle with cancer and is now buried at Malmesbury Abbey in Wiltshire. Now, so far I haven't found a parish notice board here in Buslingthorpe. I didn't find one in Linwood either last week, so this is the ideal place to leave one of these cards on this little table. So there we go, right next to the guest book. Well worth taking a look around this place, and if you do, you'll find one of my cards in here. As you can see, I'm leaning on the font, which I probably shouldn't be doing, but the font is here as well, right in front of the table. And that has been Buslingthorpe, pretty much, guys. Not really much more to tell you about this place. I think you've got the general idea. It's a tiny place in the middle of nowhere, really, when you think about it. But it's got an interesting sort of historical backstory, hasn't it? And that's the kind of thing that interests me, as I'm sure it interests you as well. Otherwise, you wouldn't be watching this very video, would you? So yeah, that's Buslingthorpe, and I'm going to make my way to the next one here in West Lindsey, which is going to be a bit bigger than the last two that you've seen in this district, so should be more meat to it. This has been the parish of Buslingthorpe, and I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.